Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another SALT Talks. Can't believe it's February, February, the end of February. Next week is March. But tonight we are going to talk about Medicaid, just understanding Medicaid, and just all the ins and outs with this program, and just confronting the fears. I mean, this is one of those Medicaid, Medicare, any of these. Have their own challenges for parents as we enter into from transition to adulthood, and your child becomes is able to become eligible for these, and just understanding what they are, who's eligible, how do you apply for them, what they're all about. So tonight we're going to be addressing, just confronting your fears, understanding the Medicaid buy-in, and all the topics around this, all the terms and topics around this particular item topic. So, and for those who don't know me, my name is Patty Schramm. I'm the parent resource trainer for the SALT Talks. So I'm going to turn it over to, we have three presenters tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to them to introduce themselves and to start the presentation.
Thank you so much, Patty. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Latosha Olinger. I'm a work incentive coordinator with Warren County Board of Developmental Disability Services. Today, we'll be presenting on understanding Medicaid. There are several different Medicaid categories, but tonight we're only presenting on information regarding the Medicaid categories that we typically see the individuals that we serve are entitled to. But just keep in mind, there's several other categories as well, but we're just going to discuss the five that we're talking about today regarding that will relate to someone that's being served by us and may be receiving other services or may be employed as well. Um, Jeanne Ehmke from OOD will be presenting with me today as well, and also Cindy Nava from Greene County. So I will get started with the first section. So we're first going to talk about what is Medicaid. Medicaid is a public health care program funded by the state and federal government. It provides necessary health care coverage for children, pregnant women, families, adults age 65 or older, and people with disability who meet the eligibility requirements. Some individuals may receive free Medicaid health care coverage. Others, may be required to pay a monthly premium or copay for certain services due to income. And just keep in mind also that sometimes you might come across individuals that may be entitled to more than one category of Medicaid, and we'll kind of discuss that as we move along. The first coverage we're going to discuss is called Age, Blind, and Disabled Medicaid. This coverage is for older adults, blind. Sorry, guys, my little screen is covering up my PowerPoint on the side. Let me see if I can close this up. Okay, there we go. Um, so let me start over. I'm sorry. Aged, blind, and disabled. So that's Medicaid coverage for older adults, blind or disabled with limited income and resources. For someone to qualify for this level of Medicaid, they have to be age 65 or older, legally blind or disabled. In 2026 of this year, have countable income below $994 per individual. For a couple, $1,491, and have resources under 2,000 for individual. For a couple, 3,000. There are some other basic requirements as well that they will have to meet to qualify for this level of Medicaid. For the sake of time, because each category can almost be covered in one session, so we did provide some hyperlinks where you can gather additional information regarding each level of program coverage for Medicaid. The next one is SSI-based Medicaid. So this is coverage for individuals who are entitled to SSI. When an individual is approved for SSI, um, I always tell families to notify Job and Family Services of that approval just to make sure the SSI process has been completed and they are showing enrollment in Medicaid as well. In order for individuals to keep this level of Medicaid, they have to be receiving SSI and also have resources under $2,000. And again, there are some hyperlinks with some different additional information that you can view at a later time. And if we have time later, we can kind of go back through some of it. The next level of coverage is called Medicaid Home and Community-Based Waiver. So these are Medicaid waivers that allows individuals with disabilities and chronic conditions to receive care in their homes and communities rather than a long-term care facility, such as a nursing home. Um, the developmental disability waivers, there's three that we're going to discuss today is the individual option waiver, and that's for all ages. The level one waiver, again, that's for all ages as well. And then the self waiver. And there's also a psychiatric service waiver through Ohio Rise. The nursing home facility level care waiver include the Ohio Home Care Waiver. That's from birth to age 59. And there's a passport waiver as well, and that's for age 60 and older. And then the last one we're going to discuss is called the assisted living waiver, and that's for age 21 and older. And again, we provided these hyperlinks so that you can kind of review each one that you have an interest in learning more about. And there is one other slide. Yes, so to qualify, Jeannie from OOD is going to discuss the next couple of slides regarding the home and community-based waiver and some other additional Medicaid programs.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I'll just introduce. I know Latosha kind of told you my name, Jeannie. I'll just repeat, Jeanne Ehmke, and I work for Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. And my role there is to do work incentives counseling. So talk about benefits with individuals who receive Social Security benefits, Medicare, Medicaid, all different types of public benefits, and discuss how those interact with employment. To continue to talk about the home and community-based services waivers, the qualifications, you have to meet what they call the level of care required for the particular waiver. Some of that information will be more detailed in those links that Latosha mentioned. Another criteria is income. So you have to have countable income less than $2,982 a month. That's the 2026 amount. Notice we say countable income because with Medicaid, all the different types of Medicaid may have different ways that they count your income. And basically that means they're not probably going to count every dollar of your income. They do some what they call like disregards, or they're not going to count every dollar of your income. So when you take that into consideration, when we give you a number, it's not like a hard and fast like number. There's going to be some things that might not be counted. And then if your countable income is above that amount, though, there is another option with the QIT, or Qualified Income Trust, where you can set one of these trusts up, and you basically can put the excess income over that 2982 into this trust, allowing you to become eligible, potentially eligible for that waiver category, for that Medicaid category, the waiver. And another important part of most Medicaid categories is that your resources need to be below a certain level. So for waivers that is below $2,000, we're going to talk about some situations here in the next few slides about, Latosha mentioned at the beginning that sometimes you can be eligible in more than one type of Medicaid, and sometimes if you're eligible for another kind, the other type of Medicaid may have a higher resource limit, and that kind of overrides the 2,000. So that's also something that might be different depending on the situation. Okay, and then there's an additional category Medicaid we're talking about tonight. That's 1619B. That's continued Medicaid eligibility for someone that is eligible for SSI. So this is going to allow someone to continue with their Medicaid coverage when they're working and they no longer are eligible to get an SSI payment. They're still eligible for SSI, but they may be in what they call a non-payment status because their income has become high enough. They're not due an SSI check. At that point, your Medicaid gets switched over. It should kind of happen automatically, but it's always good to know so you can keep an eye on that, that it happens seamlessly. They'll switch you, Job and Family Services will switch you over to the 1619B type of Medicaid. You're not really going to see a difference in kind of the coverage, or, like when you're using your Medicaid, it's going to look the same, but they're going to call it, instead of SSI Medicaid, it's just going to be called 1619B Medicaid. And that is, each year there's a threshold of income that you can be earning and stay eligible in that Medicaid category. It's relatively high. So this year it's $50,138 of annual income. And if you're working and, so you're someone who is getting SSI, you stop getting an SSI payment because your income got higher from working. If it's under the 50,138, should be eligible in that 1619B Medicaid category. So that's really nice, and something that a lot of times people don't realize that is possible. You still have to keep your resources below $2,000. And I don't know, is this a good time? I'm going to kind of ask my co-presenters to describe like what the difference between an income and and resources are. Some people may already know, I realize, but
I think it's fine. Jeannie, what do you think?
I just think sometimes those terms can be confusing. So generally, when programs are looking at income limits, your income is what you have coming in. They always look at it on a monthly basis. So money you have coming in as income is income for the month. When you carry any of that income over into the following month, it becomes a resource or an asset, like in your bank account. So cash is only one type of resource like that, but there can be others, like things that you own or stocks or other types of accounts sometimes. But generally, money is going to start to be counted as a resource, like when it's, when they're looking at your bank account the first of the month and it has more than $2,000 sitting in it. And if that's the limit, then, so you just want to be aware of that. And then we have a link for some additional information about the 1619B Medicaid category.
And Jean, I guess we probably should also share regarding like the asset limit. Sometimes if someone owns a vehicle, if they have the first vehicle is not counted towards the asset limit, but if you have a second vehicle in your name, they will count the value of that vehicle towards your asset limit. So that's something to keep in mind for individuals that may own more than one vehicle that may be
Yes.
applying or on Medicaid benefits.
Yeah, great point. Yes.
Do you want to move to the next slide, Jean?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, and then you may have heard of another category of Medicaid, type of Medicaid, called the Medicaid buy-in for workers with disabilities. It's commonly referred to by the acronym MBIWD. So this would be a type of Medicaid that allows individuals with disabilities that are working. And so you might be thinking, well, we were just talking about a Medicaid category where you can work and earn quite a bit of money and stay eligible. So depending on your situation, like if you're not someone though that is eligible or receiving SSI or was receiving an SSI payment, that 1619B wouldn't be an option, but the Medicaid buy-in could be. So often that might be someone who's receiving SSDI as opposed to SSI, so the other type of disability program that Social Security has. And Medicaid buy-in has a very high income limit. It's higher than the 1619B even. So that would also be an option for someone who is working previously on SSI and exceeds that 1619B limit. So to talk about the specifics, you have to be a citizen, resident of Ohio for that Medicaid program. The age actually has been, they've made a decision very recently, so I don't even know if it's changed yet. I haven't looked in the Ohio code, but I understand they took off the age cap. And even before they did that, they kind of did in a different way. So when we say up to 64, you actually can be older than that now and be eligible for Medicaid buy-in. You have to have a disability, so which would meet the same standards as Social Security disability. You don't have to actually get Social Security, but you have to meet that same level of disability that they use. And then you need to be employed. So any taxed employment, doesn't matter how minimal. There's no minimum amount you have to make per month. You just have to be employed and have it taxed. And then the financial guidelines are, again, you'll see that term countable income. So when you look at these numbers, keep in mind that they actually don't count over half of your money that you earn from working. So when we look at these numbers, you can really at least double them. And there's more detail I don't want to get too in the weeds with it, but it could even be a bit higher than that. So when you look at these numbers, remember, it's really at least double that. So 39,900 a year. And it also has this Medicaid program has a much higher resource limit than a lot of the other ones, where we're looking at that $2,000 in a lot of cases. For Medicaid buy-in, you can have up to 15,668. That's the number for this year. It goes up a bit each year. And then previously, there were premiums charged based on your income for this type, which is why the term buy-in is a part of it. They are no longer charging premiums, so you can have this type of Medicaid without having a monthly premium, which is really exciting. So I think we can go to the next. And I have to remember, is this where Cindy takes over? Or do you want me, or am I doing one more? I've lost track of it.
I think you have one more.
One more. Okay. Okay. So we had some examples that we were going to go through to make some of this kind of like come together for everyone. So like we mentioned, there's ways where you're eligible for multiple types of Medicaid. And this shows how that can be beneficial. So the main point of this example is that individuals who meet a categorical eligibility for Medicaid, and that is a term that Job and Family Services uses. So it includes like SSI Medicaid and the 1619B Medicaid that we talked about before. You would be categorically eligible for Medicaid if you had those types of Medicaid. If you have those, you're not subject to what they would call a patient liability or share of cost for your, which would be an amount that you would normally pay for if your income hit a certain level and went over that. So the example we're looking at is Ron is someone eligible for $900 in SSDI this year and 114 in SSI. So those are the monthly payment amounts for those benefits. So a total of 1,014 in total income when not employed this year. So let's look at Ron starting to work part-time, and he goes to work and he is earning $1,200 per month from employment income. So when we work out the numbers with this and how SSI is calculated, that ends up being that 114 in SSI is going to go away. He's going to go into a non-payment status for SSI. His income is at a level where he's still eligible to receive the 900 in SSDI, though. So he would be receiving the SSDI plus the income from working. So that would be $2,100 in total income, gross income for the month. And this is over what is called the waiver needs allowance of $1,939. When you're not working, they give you a little extra when if you're working. So basically he's working. So we're going to look at that number. That's $2,004. So what that means, if he wasn't categorically eligible for Medicaid by having that 1619B, by being able to go into that 1619B Medicaid with employment, he would owe the difference between that 2004 and his total income of 2100. But because he has that Medicaid eligible category of the 1619B Medicaid, there's no cost. He doesn't pay a patient liability share of cost for his waiver services through Medicaid. So hopefully I know that was a lot of detail. Hopefully helpful to understand. And then I believe we have a second scenario on the next slide.
Yes, we do. And I'll also take a chance to introduce myself as well. I know Latosha did that at the beginning. My name is Nava, and I'm the Compliance and Benefit Coordinator here at Greene County Board of DD. I do all things provider division related and supporting our Medicaid providers. And then I do compliance reviews, and then I assist with Social Security and Medicaid. So the example that we have for us is individuals that are eligible for the Medicaid buy-in that are not subject to the patient liability. And the patient liability, it also refers to the share of cost. And as Jeanne had explained, it's for individuals with higher income that Medicaid determines are able to financially make a payment towards the care, the cost of their care that they're receiving. Again, patient liability is determined by Medicaid, and they let the individual know if that is something that is applicable to their situation. In this example, Tish is on a level 1 home and community-based services. I know previous slides had talked about a participant-directed waiver as well as an IO waiver. This scenario's outcome would not change based on whatever waiver this individual is on. But the example has her on a level 1 waiver, and she receives $1,300 per month in SSDI. Without knowing the full audience, the difference between SSI and SSDI would be SSI is for individuals with little to no work history, and SSDI is for those that have earned enough work credits to receive Social Security based off of their own work history, or that may be of a parent. So this individual is receiving SSDI. And she begins working and she earns $1,000 per month. The $1,000 is going to be gross income. Medicaid always considers gross income, not net. And this results in her having a monthly income of the $2,300. And that is adding what she receives in SSDI plus her gross earnings. And this puts her over the 2026 waiver needs allowance. As described, it's $1,939 for not working and $2,004 if working. However, being that she's enrolled in the Medicaid buy-in program, she is not going to owe a patient liability. Those that are enrolled in the Medicaid buy-in program are actually exempt from owning a patient liability. And like Jeanne had said, the buy-in program would result in a monthly premium for the individual, but there is no premium at this time. And so an individual enrolled in the specific Medicaid program would not have a monthly premium cost. Next slide, please. So they've put together some incredible resources, lots of hyperlinks to describe some of the things that we talked about. And I know we're going to go back and answer some of your questions, but there are many different ways that you can apply for Medicaid if you have not already. You can go to the benefitsohio.gov and you can apply online. You can apply online. You can mail in an application for Medicaid. You can also call it in. And our county at Greene County, at the JFS office, I'm certain is probably similar to other counties. In our lobby, we have Medicaid applications available in the lobby that you can go. You can pick one up and take it home at your leisure and review it and decide if you want to apply or not. And then you can mail in that application or you can turn it in person. If you decide to call in your application, apply over the phone, or do it online, you will be receiving, or in person, you will be receiving an application ID number. And it's important that you keep that application ID number because that's what you're going to use as you continue down the application journey and you want to check the status on that application. The consumer hotline, that's a great line to call if you cannot get through to your local JFS office. The consumer hotline is open Monday through Fridays at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. They're also open on Saturdays from 8 to 5. So there's a lot more flexibility in that time frame of their office being open to accept your phone calls than maybe your local office. And then you can also visit the Medicaid.gov on how to apply, and there's step-by-step directions on how to do so. The very first link on benefits.ohio.gov, I forgot to mention, there's some great videos. If you're a visual learner like myself, there's some videos on how to go through the online application process. And next slide, please. And again, we're going to review the customer consumer hotline as well as visiting the Medicaid programs. Those sites will show you programs that are offered through managed care programs and other programs for individuals, families, and providers. And then the last one on the directory, this will put you in touch with the Medicaid office that is in your county. It'll give you the address and a contact number. And it is best practice if you are applying for Medicaid to apply within the county in which the individual who's applying resides. You can apply outside of the county, but it's best practice to apply within your county of residence because we don't want any delays in your application. And last slide, please. And then the Ohio Medicaid at the very top, if you go on that website, if you scroll all the way down on that website, they have a subscribe link for you if you want to subscribe to start receiving Medicaid news. And it'll just be like changes, upcoming changes, and things that are happening in the world of Medicaid that you might find to be beneficial. The middle links are checking your eligibility when applying, as discussed in the previous slides. You will receive a an application ID number, and you will need that ID number if you're checking online your application status. If you mail in your application, you won't get an application ID immediately, but one will be provided to you through an email from the Medicaid office once they've received and start processing your application. The very last one that says the managed care, it says DB 101. Those are really good links. I was on there earlier today. They have a glossary that is in alphabetical order, and it really breaks down a lot of acronyms and some of the things that we've discussed today about the 1619B. There's a 1619A that we're not discussing this evening, and there's other assessments and other vocab that you're going to be coming in contact with through your county board to be assessed for waiver enrollment and other areas for Social Security and Medicaid. And that's a really great resource for you to just learn more information about the acronyms and areas that you're going to be going through with the county board or with your benefit coordinator and further explaining some of the items that you will be in contact and going through with. And that would be my last slide.
Thanks, Cindy. Do we have any questions in the chat box, Patty?
I didn't see anything specific. I do have a question, back to your QIT Medicaid. How does that different, the QIT, Medicaid, the, trust? How is that different from a special needs trust, I should say, or, what is the QIT again, and how is that different?
So I can share some content. So the qualified income trust allows individuals that have higher income to still meet the eligibility requirements in order to get the waiver. So any income above that limit for that year must go into that qualified income trust in order to maintain eligibility or in order to qualify for the waiver. But they can utilize the money in that trust for approved medical needs.
Would that be Medicaid liable then?
Yes, right, guys? Jeannie? Like, so the money, I would say yes. I think
It
so.
is.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an irrevocable
Revocable
trust.
trust, yeah.
Yes, but it is for the beneficiary upon the passing of the individual. Yes, it would be liable back for Medicaid, and there is a difference between that and an ABLE account. I know we receive a lot of questions about the difference for that. The ABLE account, also, it is federally protected, and it's a way to put money in there to assist with additional expenses, medical, educational, that kind of thing as well. They are different, but they are both there to protect the individual's assets and resources.
And I guess
Thank
I'll
you.
should share, like, if you're eligible for the Medicaid buy-in for workers with disability program, then you wouldn't be required to open up the qualified income trust. So if you have someone that's over the income limit and they're working and eligible for that MBIWD, then the qualified income trust would not come into play for that individual.
That's
So
something I was going to mention that too, that I don't see. I know that there are certain situations where that is necessary and can be helpful for someone to maintain that Medicaid eligibility, but I most often would see that if someone, the reason that they're over the limit is all basically due to unearned income. So like someone that gets a very high SSDI check, or maybe what I've seen a couple times is a combination of a SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance check, along with maybe a type of like pension benefit that they're drawing from a parent who maybe passed away. So they're just have a lot of unearned income, and there's not very many ways that they can not count that income as they can with earned income from working. And if you're working, you can, like Latosha said, you can, there's the other option of Medicaid buy-in, or yeah.
I do want to plug in the DB 101 is a very good link because it goes by whatever state you're in. You can look at all the resources. Correct? It's we have the Ohio, which is the OH dot the DB 101. But if you're in Ohio, or if you're in Indiana or Kentucky, you can look at the disability benefits for each of those states. Is that correct?
yes. And another good thing about the DB 101, you can kind of go in and do like an estimate, but keep in mind it's not to replace a benefit analysis or a benefit specialist giving you giving you benefit advice, but it will kind of help you to kind of determine where you're at with employment, or if you're thinking about like increasing your hours or taking on a new position, you can definitely kind of start there to kind of figure out where things may lay after you take on a new job or increase your work hours. But we always advise individuals to definitely, in those situations, definitely seek out a benefit specialist to get a benefit analysis so you can get some concrete information based on your benefits after everything's been verified by the agencies that you're receiving benefits from.
And I can't, the benefit analysis, we've had several done over the years. And it's like every time a job change or you want to see where you're at with, before you start a job. And OOD, I know will do it. Latosha, I know will do them in analysis, right, in Warren County. And OOD, Jeanne, that's statewide. Each county has, someone representing in their area that could do a benefit analysis. Um, Cindy, do you do benefit analysis or is that in for Greene County?
I do not do benefit analysis in Greene County, but we have a lot of resources for individuals who do want to have that done that we provide for the families. And we definitely recommend it. It's a wonderful resource for families to take advantage.
So I strongly suggest like if you to have a benefit analysis done, especially if you're going into that employment coming out of high school, looking at employment or just coming out of high school, get a benefit analysis done and have that we've talked about it over the last couple of weeks. Having that done and contacting OOD or your county board, whoever your transition SSA is, and they can get you in touch with who is in the county, or you can just go to OOD. And I don't know, Jeannie, can you elaborate on like OOD? If they would just go to your website and request one, or is it a direct request through the county board to OOD that they could get a benefit analysis?
So yeah, so it's a little bit it can happen kind of different ways, but generally, so we can do a benefit analysis for someone that's receiving like services through OOD already, or or once you've signed up for services, that's like something that we do in addition. So generally, the vocational counselor that you may be working with through OOD would be someone that can discuss those options with you, to choose to either use someone like myself, like on our in the OOD staff that does them, or if you already have a connection to someone at the county board, like if you're in Warren County and Latosha, is there, you might want her to do your benefit analysis. So it's always about like choice, but it kind of usually that conversation starts with the vocational counselor, like with your vocational counselor, and do we want to talk, like, I didn't know if we have a little bit,
Yeah, I
time, I
think we,
know.
yeah.
Do we want to talk about like what like is covered in that, or or have you already had some that topic covered, Patty? Like kind of like what a benefit analysis kind of does, or what it details it can provide.
We've touched on it, but you can just go a brief overview or another review real quick, because it all ties in with these topics. I mean, we've talked about the SSI, the SSDI, and Medicaid, and then you have employment. They all kind of like interlink so
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, I just generally, what it the point the point of the benefit analysis is just to verify. So the person doing the analysis would have you sign releases giving them permission to contact Social Security, and Job and Family Services, perhaps other sources of, like, if you had a housing subsidy, for example, we may want to release to contact that agency, so we can get those details too, because any program where income could impact your benefit that you receive, we'd want to kind of collect that information. So kind of the first step is to verify, like we said, there's different types of Social Security benefits. A lot of times it can be very confusing. The letters aren't always clear about what type of benefit you might be getting, or you might start on SSI and switch over to SSDI at some point. So part of the point of us verifying that would just be to, like, say for sure, okay, you definitely have this type of benefit, or maybe you have both. And then we can tell you what work incentives and what income, like how that could make a difference in your eligibility continuing for those benefits. So same with Medicaid, since that's the topic tonight. We'd want to verify through Job and Family Services. Here in Ohio, that's the agency that administers Medicaid. Exactly what type, what category, what one of those many types of Medicaid you may have, or multiple types. And then we can say, okay, here's where you are. Here's the type of Medicaid you have. If your goal is to, start work or to increase your hours at work, this is the report. The point of the report is to kind of go through those scenarios with you and say, if you did this, you'd keep this benefit, you keep this benefit. This might change to a different type of Medicaid. Generally, we try to, point out a few different scenarios so you can kind of make an informed decision about employment based on, how that might change your benefits. Or a lot of times people are surprised to learn they can keep the benefits they already have, where they might have been worried about that. So anything you got, feel free to add anything else, Latosha. Cindy.
No, I think you covered a lot of it. Jeannie, I would say that I know some people are really concerned about the medical piece of things, and they're really concerned about losing Medicaid because maybe they have a waiver tied to it, or they just due to their medical condition, they have a lot of medical bills that may come to play if they don't have Medicaid. So having that benefit analysis would definitely help make someone understand like what choices they have available to them when they're seeking employment, so they can make an informed decision on whether or not they should take on that full-time position, or if they should, stick with part-time work because the money that they may have to pay out in medical expenses precede, the money they may get by working full-time. So that benefit analysis is definitely a great source to kind of go over those different scenarios so someone can understand, like, if they're moving forward with employment exactly what to expect to see in the future once that employment starts, or if they are deciding to increase their wages or move into a different position that's going to allow them to make more money on the hour or get paid salary, excuse me, they'll know what to expect and not be so afraid about, moving forward and then find out later that, oh, your Medicaid is going to stop in 30 days. And we definitely don't want that to happen.
I wanted to cover a question sometimes we receive here um, outside of a question that is very common for us is if they are enrolling in the Medicaid buy-in, some of them are covered maybe on a parent's insurance as well, and they have another, or if their work is also providing a private insurance. And with the Medicaid buy-in, you don't have to choose. You actually can have a primary insurance, and your Medicaid can be your secondary insurance. And so part of that benefit analysis, I know that some people will say, well, what do I have to give up in order to also enroll if this is appropriate? And the answer to that is you do not have to give up a primary insurance. You can go ahead and keep that as well to make sure that all encompassing your medical needs are met.
That's a good point, Cindy, because we do have some individuals, they're in parents as well, just trying to determine do they keep their child on their medical insurance or do they decide to drop it when they receive Medicaid benefits. So I always share with families like you have to think about what's best for you and your child. Sometimes Medicaid may cover everything, but your choices in providers and specialists may not be as wide as if you have employer sponsor insurance. So things to think about when making that decision to keep the employer sponsor insurance or just, have Medicaid or keep combined. So just keep in mind if there is another insurance carrier, Medicaid is always the payer of last resort.
That's very good. I forgot about that part. So very, that's a good point. Um, do you have any last minute comments or anything else you want to add? And we will close the recording, and open it up for discussion. Do you have anything else you want to add, Cindy or Latasha or Jeannie?
I guess we can add one more other thing is if you're trying to figure out like when I apply for Medicaid, is there certain boxes I need to check if I'm interested in Medicaid buy-in or the 1619B category? So what Medicaid use or Job and Family Services, I should say, when you're applying for those benefits, you're just checking that you're requesting medical assistance and then it's um, the case manager that's overseeing your application will go through all the possible categories that you could be eligible for and make a decision on which category would suit you best.
Okay, great. Um, Cindy or Jeannie, do you have any other additional information that you want to share before closing the recording?
Can't think of anything. That's a good point,
Okay.
Professor.
Yes. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then we're going to open it up for discussion. It just gives an opportunity for those who that are here on the call tonight, gives you a chance to ask the questions that maybe and you just don't want to type it in the chat or you don't want to be recorded. So I want to before I close the recording, thank Cindy and Latasha and Jeannie for speaking tonight on this topic that I find is very difficult sometimes to comprehend as you're going through, these challenges and these different stages of transition. And this is something that you just face throughout, transition throughout the life of your individual. So one second while I close the presentation or close the recording. One second.